Well, today we're going to focus on the next part of that prayer, which is, give us this day, today, our daily bread. Notice something right off the bat. We're not coming to God as beggars. We're not coming saying, please, please, sir, may I have some more? We're not. He's not telling us to come to him as beggars. We're coming to him in confidence because he's our Father. And a father wants to provide for his children. He wants us to recognize that he is our source. So we come to him and say, give us today our daily bread. How many of you would like to know what's going to happen tomorrow? You would like to have a little secret window, crystal ball, if you will, and you'd like to know what was going to happen tomorrow. Or how about next year? What if you saw all the events for next year and you just knew what was going to happen and you somehow have that knowledge or have that view? We all give at least a little bit of attention to this area of the future and trying to predict. We try to be responsible. We try to have savings. We try and raise our children in a way that equips them for the realities of this world. We try to think about retirement so that when we get older and our capacity diminishes a bit, we have provision. It can sometimes be fun to speculate about the future. I'm kind of a sci-fi nerd, if you don't know that. I love a good story set in a distant future. And these stories have allowed us to explore the human condition. It's even directed some of our technology, like Star Trek communicators. Anybody remember those? Like Captain Kirk, And back then, where's the wires? Something so small can't do that and reach vast distances. And now we have these that can reach anywhere in the world right now. It's driven some of our technology. From H.G. Wells' Time Machine to Back to the Future, there have been attempts to look forward with hopes and dreams. I'm still upset I don't have a hoverboard. Or my Jetsons sky car, right? The flying car. Or robot maids. We have the robot vacuums. We're getting closer, but, But there's also a dark side to trying to look ahead. A dark side to trying to lean into what's not here yet. When people are afraid. When people are afraid and they want to try and control the future. When people feel like they're all on their own. When people act like this life is all there is. When people want to control their own destiny and be their own masters. We've been trying to peer into the future as long as there's been recorded history. From ancient pagans to ignorant Christians, trying to determine what's ahead by gazing at the stars and constellations for hints of what's ahead. Yeah, I went there. I said it. Fortune tellers, psychics, palm readers, desperate, gullible people trying to get some reassurance about what is coming, afraid of what's around the corner. Right now, fear is off the charts for a lot of folks. We want to know what's ahead because we want to control. And again, there's a responsible side of that. We're trying to plan. But then there's the dark side where we want to control because we don't trust. Many of us feel out of control right now, and frankly, it might get worse. One thing I've learned in my 29 years of life is that, yeah, it just may be. If it works, I'm going to claim it, yes. But one thing I've learned in my years of life is that control is an illusion. Have you learned that lesson yet? I can control some things. I can control which direction that my life is pointed in. I can control most of my choices and habits. I can control and discipline and those things. And I can control my feelings most of the time. But I cannot control the future. If you've lived long enough, you've probably discovered that the script that you had written out for your life is basically tore up, thrown in the trash. Didn't see any of that. But as to what happens in life or the attempt to control other people, it's an illusion and it's a fruitless pursuit. If you spend your life trying to control somebody else, you're going to be frustrated your entire life. You know, everything that people have placed their trust in is being shaken right now. Drug usage is off the charts. People are afraid. People are trying to medicate their pain. So here we have this prayer that we're supposed to pray daily. We're supposed to approach the Father, invite His kingdom in our lives and through our lives. And then he says, and then ask the Father, give us today our daily bread. Can this ancient prayer that Jesus was teaching us, can it hold a key to having peace even in our current reality world? So, give us today our daily bread. Now, some modern translations say, give us today the food that we need. And that's okay. It's okay. It is faithful to the Greek. With the manuscripts that make up our Bible, they're made up of some versions are made as highly readable versions for a modern audience, many of whom are unchurched. But for the Bible scholars, the translators, those who read their Bibles, when they read the words, our daily bread, they sense and they see a connection to other pieces in the Bible. It triggers something like, daily bread. Where have I heard that before? And so the Bible readers recognize that. And so, and the first hearers of Jesus' words would recognize and make a connection to something in the Old Testament when he's saying this to a Jewish audience. They would understand that in the Torah, there was something very similar to this. And he's making that point deliberately. So what I want to do is I want to go to the Torah. I want to go to the Old Testament. I want to read from Exodus a few verses. Exodus 16, 4 through 5, and then 14 through 15 says, Then the Lord said to Moses, I'm going to rain bread from heaven for you. Ooh, I like that. The people are going to go out each day and gather enough for that day. Important. The people are going to go out each day and gather enough for that day. This way I will test them. Do you know God tests you? Like literally all the time. This life is a test. This way I will test them to see whether or not they will follow my instructions. Will you trust me? On the sixth day, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gather on other days, because on the seventh day they're supposed to what? Rest. So he gives you what you need in order to rest and follow his commands. When you honor God's commands, you're actually more productive than if you went outside of the boundaries that God sets, trying to be more productive. God blesses the Sabbath. He blesses the tithe. 14:15. When the layer of dew evaporated, there were fine flakes on the desert surface, as fine as frost on the ground. When the Israelites saw it, they asked one another, "What is it?" Because they didn't know what it was. Moses told them, "It is the bread the Lord has given you to eat." So let me give you a little bit of background. When they saw the manna that had fallen to the ground, they said, "What is it?" Literally, what that word, "what is it" in Hebrew, it is manna. That's where we get the word manna. It's a question. What the heck is this? Sometimes we don't recognize God's provision. So we say, manna. Manna, what is this? It's manna. It's from heaven. They'd never seen anything like it before. But God met their needs and fed them each and every day. They had to work. They had to go out and collect it. They had to turn it into food. But he provided for them each and every day. And what we're reading is, God had just delivered them from Egypt with crazy miracles. Plagues and the crossing of the Red Sea. I mean, just crazy miracles that shook the world, and generations and other kingdoms still talked about what God did for the people of Israel to get them out of Egypt. But he says in this passage, this way I will test them to see whether or not they will follow my instructions. Guess what? They didn't learn that lesson very well. They're just like you and me. How many times has God had to teach you and reteach you and like, well, let's go over it again, son. Well, daughter, let's sit down. What are you doing? Right? And so, this is a people that the Lord was trying to train to follow him and to trust him. He had to train them in this. He was training them to depend upon him, to look to him for their provision. It would be a foundation on how to approach life is to look for daily bread that we still should be learning from and doing each day. It's not advocating passivity or laziness. They had to go out, they had to collect the manna. And by the way, the manna didn't last forever. Jews aren't in Israel right now every morning and be like, where's the manna? It didn't last forever. It was for a season and for a purpose because God was training them that he would be their provision. 40 years it lasted. When did the manna stop? The moment they crossed into the promised land. There's something there, if you get it. Joshua 5:11-12 says this, the very next day they began to eat the unleavened bread and roasted grain, harvested from the land, the promised land. Verse 12, no manna appeared on the day they first ate from the crops of the land, and it was never seen again. So from that time on, the Israelites ate from the crops of Canaan. There's something there, and I don't have time to really unpack that. But when God leads you into your promise and what he has for you, don't think that it won't take work to live there. Got to move on. So God provided the manna not only for their survival, but because he was teaching them something about being the people of God. They followed the pillar and the cloud each day. They didn't take the shortest route. They didn't take shortcuts. It wasn't about the destination as much as it was about the journey and the lessons that he was teaching them. This is how you be the people of God. This is how you be my people, is you trust me each and every day. You go where I lead. You stop where I say. You look to me for your provision. That is how I will lead you and provide for you.